Kanye West makes an attempt to buy Parler, which is I guess you would call it a more conservative slash libertarian leaning social media platform. And the media does not want to cover Rippaverse at all, or the comic book media. Now, the Kanye West story is crazy in the sense that I did not see this coming. I was happened to be randomly scrolling through some social media stuff and I saw this story and I thought to myself, wow, where on the planet Earth did this come from? This seemed to be left field. Now, I don't know if this is due to the fact that Kanye West has been canceled, air quotes, over the last few days. But I thought that was interesting, him buying or seeking to buy this social media platform. I'll go to this story from the Parler website itself. If you're not following me, if you're not on Parler, interesting platform. If you decide to sign up, go follow me on Parler. My handle is Brooknom, Brooknom. Also, I've noticed that there's many people watching my videos who are not subscribed. Subscribe, if you will, if you find the content interesting. So let's read what is said on Parler. Parliament Technologies is pleased to announce that it has entered into an agreement in principle for Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, to acquire the Parler platform. The acquisition ensures Parler a future role in creating an uncancelable ecosystem where all voices are welcome, says CEO George Farmer. This deal will change the world and change the way the world thinks about free speech. Ye is making a groundbreaking move into the free speech media space, and will never have to fear being removed from social media again. So that's the news. Kanye West and a bid to purchase Parler. That's a big move. I'm not exactly sure how big the purchase is, what the purchase price is. Parler almost unseated Twitter. A few years ago, there was a whole concerted campaign to unseat Parler. They lobbied to have Parler removed from the iOS and Android stores. And I believe they were also removed from Amazon's web hosting services. It all stemmed behind a mass shooting event. I can't remember which exact event it was, to which the perpetrator used Parler. Coincidentally, this wasn't his major platform of use. I believe he used Facebook, and there was one other platform. I can't remember if it was YouTube or Instagram, which one. Anyway, they said this is what he used to organize, and they got him up out of here. That's really the crux of the matter. They got Parler up out of here. Parler was gaining a lot of traction. And in some ways, this actually helped a lot of these alternative media apparatuses. A lot of these new platforms that are arising actually learn from what happened to Parler. Allergies going crazy. And what they have done, many of these platforms, is in their creation and in their establishment, they make sure they don't use establishment services like Amazon's web hosting service. A lot of new platforms like Rumble, I believe they've set up their own infrastructure. By the way, if you're not following me on Rumble, And if you do happen to have a Rumble account, look me up on there. The thinking, the same is here on YouTube. So yeah, this was an interesting story. Kanye West purchasing Parler. I guess he figured for all of his complaints, if you've not been following the saga of Kanye West, he's complaining about many things going on within the scope of media and how there are groups of people who control the media and want to shut him down or want to focus his voice or influence the focus of his voice in a certain direction. And Kanye West, if you know anything about him, he doesn't like being controlled. So I thought that was interesting. So to this Rippaverse news, I'm going to tell you something that I discovered. So there are many mainstream comic book platforms. And I looked up some of the biggest, right? And you'll see the list here. CBR, Bleeding Cool, IGN Comics, The Beat, Comics Worth Reading. I didn't go to that one, but I just wanted to go to a few of them to see, okay, so what's going on these websites? What do they say on these websites about the Rippaverse? I can tell you right now that CBR.com has not covered anything Rippaverse at all. Complete blackout and silence. Bleeding into Cool. There's an article. I believe this is the most recent article, which was in July. I believe all of their articles on the Rippaverse are from July, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not necessarily reviewing the comic book. And as far as I can tell, as far as I knew, these were websites dedicated to comic book review. You would think they would review this comic book. You go to the comicsbeat.com and I checked for iSum, I checked for Rippaverse, and I got nothing. So they're not really covering the comic book. And here's the problem I have with that. Now, I have no problem with critiques, and I really want to hear all sides of an argument because I can be wrong. My take can be wrong. There's something that I could miss, especially if you happen to be a fan of someone in general. If there's something that they create, maybe there's something you give a pass because you appreciate the person, something that's worth critique. I think what it seems as though the comic book industry, the establishment, it seems as though they don't want any focus on iSum #1 or the Rippaverse at all. And anything they write is going to bring attention to that book. It's going to divert eyes to that book. I think that's inevitable. I think even if they had something bad to say about the book, there are many comic book readers like myself. If there's a book everyone is talking about, and let's say there's a negative view of the book from everyone, I may at a bare minimum, at least if it's, let's say if it's a series, I may at a bare minimum buy one book just to judge for myself. Man, okay, everybody hates this thing. This must be terrible. Let me pick up one book and see what this is about. And it would appear as though they don't even want any eyes to ever be diverted to the Rippaverse, which that's strange. And like I said, you don't get a dissenting viewpoint. So I pulled up this article. It was written on the 13th. It's on this website, comicalopinions.com. And this article was written by Gabriel Hernandez. And he has some harsh critiques for the Rippaverse. Some good things to say and some harsh critiques. So I'm going to read this because I believe everything is worth being criticized. There's nothing that is beyond the realm of criticism, right? As far as art and creation, there's people who are going to like things. There's people who are not going to like things. Okay, so this is what he says. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole article, but I'll read as much of it as I can. ISOM number 1 from Rippaverse Comics on October 1st, 2022 follows Avery Silman, aka ISOM, an enhanced individual content to live a quiet life away from the city when a plea for help leads to a quickly escalating cycle of violence. It's a pretty good synopsis, and he has, writer Eric July, art Cliff Richards, colors Gabe El Taib, letters Eric Withers, cover art by Cliff Richards, $35 to the price. Is it good? ISOM number 1 is the inaugural offering from fledgling comics publisher Rippaverse Comics, and we have the pleasure of checking out the original graphic novel to give you our best assessment. There is a whole heap of internet buzz, and this title and the writer Eric July, but our mission and is and always will be to critique the finished work. Twitter nonsense is just that, nonsense. Let's do this. Since we received the physical copy, we'd be negligent and not talking about the quality of the shipping and the OGN construction. The shipping box is appropriately sized for the OGN, with the box designed with guard tabs to add a buffer against shipping damage. The OGN is baggaged and bordered neatly, and the delivery communication was clear, timely, and thorough. The OGN, by the way, original graphic novel, if you haven't figured that out, he said it in the beginning, so I'm not reading out that whole thing. I'm just saying OGN. Okay, timely manner. The OGN is constructed with a heavy, durable cardstock cover. The pages are thick, semi-gloss, and the ink does not smudge under normal handling. By any reasonable measure of quality, this OGN is well constructed, packaged, and shipped product. And that is very true. For this to be a new comic book, a new IP, this was done very well. July's script centers around Avery Silman, aka ISOM, a man with enhanced durability and strength who lives out in the valley, away from the headaches of city life. Avery receives a call for help, one he can't refuse, to find a missing woman. The investigation runs Avery afoul of an old acquaintance turned dangerous gangster. And excuse me, I should have mentioned that within this article there are some spoilers. So there are some spoilers. Okay. The plot is clean and clear. The pacing for the 100-page OGN is surprisingly brisk, and the dialogue is relatively natural. On the whole, this is a solid superhero action story that flows beautifully, and I truly believe that this is a good assessment. But it's not all glowing from this from the writer of this article, Mr. Hernandez. He gives some. I think his critiques are definitely warranted, but I'm not sure that everyone will feel this way. I know I don't feel this way, and I will explain why as I read this article. There are a few points in July's script you may want to consider before purchasing first. Avery's origin is unclear. Now, here's the thing about that. This is book number 1. So there are several things that are built in book number 1. One, the mystery is built. there's certain things, and I'm not going to give too many spoilers. I've been trying to avoid that, giving people time to get their books in and to read the book before getting on the internet and getting spoilers. Some people don't care about spoilers. I'm one of those people, but there are people who do, and I want to respect that. So I want to be careful as to not give away too much, which is why in all of my videos covering the Rippaverse, I've held back from saying too much. This is what I will say. I have my theories, and I believe this is what Eric July did on purpose. I believe Eric July played on the curiosity of comic book readers that has been fostered since reading their first book, right? If you started when you were young, there was always a mystery to comic books. There was things that you kind of had to figure out. It wasn't all spelled out in one book. And part of the excitement was guessing and figuring this stuff out, and then getting the next book to find out, yes, I was right. This is exactly what I thought about this character. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought they were going to go in this direction, and they did. I was right. That is actually extremely exciting. It's extremely exciting to read a book, take some guesses, see some mysterious things. And there are, I'm trying to figure out how to word this without giving spoilers. There are different places within the book where things happen, and if you're not paying attention, it'll blow over your head. And some of those things are connected to some things that happen at the very end of the book. See, I picked up on this, and it actually got me very excited. And in picking up on those things, I was able to understand exactly why Eric July wrote the story the way he did, why the information within the book flowed the way it did. I got it. I understand. You want to make sure that people come back to the next book with a bit of excitement, right? There was something intriguing that happened. There was some mystery behind it, and you didn't give us all of the details. So this is where fandom comes in. And I think this critique misses that idea, in my humble opinion. Eric July is building a fandom, and fans craft theories. You can go look through any comic book video from DC or Marvel where fans are going over certain things, and you see them crafting theories. They don't have all of the information. They have bits and pieces, and from those bits and pieces, they are crafting theories and making a determination of what they think is going to happen next. And I think that is exactly what Eric July was seeking to do, which is why some things were unclear. That was done on purpose. I don't think this was an accident. And I think a lot of the critiques I see of that are, in my opinion, assuming that that was an accident. But I could be wrong, and this is why I want to see views of people that have some harsh critiques. Okay, he goes on. We don't know the extent of his powers, how he got them, or even if he's human. If this was a standard 22-page floppy, a little mystery to intrigue readers has value, but leaving out so much information about the main character doesn't give readers much to get behind to understand his point of view. Now, I disagree. First of all, again, trying to do this without spoilers, this first book didn't just cover things going on with Avery. I'll leave it at that. So you have some different plot points within the book. So you don't have too much going on. It's actually, for a 96-page book, it's both expansive and condensed, in my opinion, if that makes sense. So this critique, while I think it's a valid critique, I don't think it's invalid. I would say that this critique misses the point if you read the whole book, if you caught all the nuggets, which I'm assuming this writer did catch all the nuggets, maybe he didn't. Man, I can't wait to go over a full review because there's something I caught in one of the scenes that I was like, "Oh, I could tell this is important right here." And you see, there's a certain detective element of reading comic books. Like, I don't want to be told everything. I don't want to have all of the information readily available right at my fingertips, especially if this is a new IP. I do want there to be some degree of mystery because there are things that I'm not going to know. And really and truly, I kind of want this to be a surprise. I want it to catch me off guard. I want to take some guesses. I want to find out when the next book comes out that, oh, my guess was right. Exactly what I thought is what's going on. That's kind of exciting. All right. The writer goes on to say, the gap in understanding leads to the second point. Without understanding the character's point of view, there's no clarity about the character's motivation. And this is where I greatly disagree. And I don't know if Mr. Hernandez, is that his name? Let me go back up and make sure. I think his name is Hernandez. Yes, Gabriel Hernandez, excuse me. So I think Mr. Hernandez actually missed the point, in my opinion. And I don't know if he was paying attention as he was reading, but you actually do get some of Isom's motivation behind what he's doing. He actually says it in some of the dialogue. So I don't know if maybe Mr. Gabriel missed this. Maybe he did, maybe he doesn't remember. I've read through the book once, but I read through it very carefully, and there's things I remember, and those things made the book very exciting. Let's see where I left off. He said something about motivation. He said, at best, Avery is motivated to lash out against his enemies because he felt disrespected, which is a thin motivation when you consider how far Avery goes to stay off the grid and away from the public. And see, this is where, again, I believe Mr. Hernandez missed the point. The point is, this is part of what brings you back for more. I'm not going to read too much more of the article because he does go over some spoilers, and I don't want this to be spoiled for people who have yet to get the book, but they want to hear some of the critiques. That was some of his critiques. He felt like there wasn't enough information given, so you don't really have a good grasp of what's going on. And here's my rebuttal to that. And again, this is not for me to be an apologist of the Rippaverse. I do enjoy the comic book. I do see the point, and maybe some people are not getting it. And that's what I think is possible is happening. The point is, you're not going to get everything. As a matter of fact, if this is where you run into an issue, in this social media age, we actually do have a lot of information. If you read this book and you never listened to Eric July, then you wouldn't have heard him say that he wants there to be a certain mystery about certain things. He himself wants to hear the fan theories. He himself wants some guesswork on a part of the fans because he wants the fans involved and engaged. And that is what this does. I am engaged. I can't wait, Lord willing, till a few months passes by and I see some fan theories and I can inject some of my own theories about what I think. And I think what he did was he found a way to organically build fans because of some of the very things that this writer, Mr. Gabriel Hernandez, has said. Everything is not clear. nor do I expect it to be all clear in one book. What you did get in one book, you got introduced to some key characters. You got introduced to something quietly going on in the background if you were paying attention. And you got introduced to some not so important characters, but characters that are going to play a big enough role that it'll keep you interested. And I think that was a good and a very solid start. But why the rest of the establishment comic book media is not covering the Rippaverse at all, why they are playing total silence with this, I cannot tell you. The only thing I can say, and the only reason I can figure that they would do this and that they would go this route with this book, is they're afraid. I can't make heads or tails of that. If it's bad, cover the book and say, hey, it's bad, it's terrible, here's why it's terrible. I think they don't want to do that because they don't want any attention drawn to the book, which is kind of crazy. We're comic book readers. I think we have an either or mentality. Like, people think, well, if the Rippaverse picks up, DC and Marvel are going to collapse. That DC and Marvel aren't going anywhere. Neither is Image, neither is Dark Horse. These comic book companies are going to be around unless something catastrophic happens, which is possible. Eric July and the Rippaverse is not just going to make these comic book companies go away. I'm going to still read DC. I'm going to still read Marvel. I read some Image comics, but Image Comics is not what it once was when it first started. The comic books are kind of different, not my particular interest. But hey, we can have more than one comic book company, and we can read more than one comic book. This is a thing.